Now, there are many different ways of still having fun in Overwatch, even in light of the very apparent lack of content. As much as tanks, DPS, and supports all play very differently, I think we can come to an agreement about a very specific practice being universally satisfying, and that is spawn camping. I mean, honestly, any amount of flanking usually promises to be hilarious, depending on how much awareness the enemy team has to spare, so you don't have to go as far as to pushing into their spawn, but Lord knows that the further you go, the more funny it is going to end up being. But not all flanks are made equal. The more HP and/or mobility you have, the more success you will usually see. That means that especially support heroes shy of Lucio are going to have more difficulty indulging in that pastime. Granted, Zenyatta is a great hero to spawn camp with, as long as you're camping your own spawn. If you're a support player, you will have no choice but to learn to deal with the constant barrage of flankers trying to catch you off guard. It is very much do or die in the support category. If you ever wondered what it's like to be the popular kid in school that everyone is dying to get the attention of, trying to play support will certainly give you that experience. And it is an experience that I haven't had in a while because unfortunately I have fallen sick. I know we all joke about how not having to play Overwatch is a blessing, but at the end of the day it is still my favorite game. So not getting to flank anybody on Zenyatta in 3 months has given me crazy withdrawal syndromes to scary degrees. But that wasn't as scary as what happened on our last episode. Oh wow, I haven't done one of these in a while. As part of our Spooktober Halloween special, we have discovered what was possibly the most egregious attempt at throwing a game yet submitted via replay. The true story of that episode was definitely how our heroes managed to fight tooth and nail against the opposition despite the fact that they were 1 player down. But the fact that ICE continued to find more efficient ways of throwing definitely made it an uphill battle. And that ties nicely into today's episode because despite my best attempts, I wouldn't blame you for assuming that I might be a thrower myself. Even in light of the current state of the game, that 3-month forced vacation left me with a lot of unsatisfied desires, and to fulfill them, I have no choice but to shake off some rust. So ladies and gentlemen, strap yourselves in as I conquer the flanks as Zenyatta yet again, because there's no force powerful enough to stop me from achieving my goal. Unless they play Doomfist. God, I really hope they don't play Doomfist. Right from the get-go, this round was about as Overwatch as it gets. It seemed like the attackers didn't have much of a plan at all, allowing our team to pick them off 1 by 1. I figured this meant that flanking would be easy, but I actually got caught off guard by a random Widowmaker contesting my high ground. And while getting rid of them was easy, I immediately paid the price for my position. In an ironic twist, it was I who was the target of a camp no less than 20 seconds into this match, and wasn't it for my teammates chasing down the enemy Roadhog, Lord knows I would have gotten very familiar with the decor of my spawn room very quickly. But alas, I was spared from that fate and allowed passage back to the front line. I did actually see how far my Doom and Winston went to get rid of that Roadhog in our spawn, so it was my absolute pleasure to lend them my Discord open order to make our spawn camping dreams a reality. Seeing your high mobility teammates follow up diligently on your targets is a sight to behold, and there was no way my Winston was about to let the enemy Mercy get away, Discord orb or not. I know I said that conquering the flank was my goal, but I wasn't expecting the enemy team to be contesting it so frequently. I could never flank myself because I was busy telling my monkey to get rid of the enemies occupying it. Go on, child, spread your rocket-propelled wings. Fox must have really not been a fan of Mercy as a character, because every time they saw Mini Ninja do as much as breathing the same air as them, there'll be no expense spared to get them back to their spawn. Having realized that Widowmaker was not going to work out for them, Velraven swapped to Ashe in order to accommodate the Mercy pick, though once that Mercy was gone, they had to handle my Winston on their own, which ended up not being as difficult as you might imagine. The enemy team was getting desperate. When flanking did not have the desired effect, they did the old classic staircase push, which especially against a Junkrat is just a really bad idea. That is, until the enemy Roadhog somehow fishes that same Junkrat out of a barrel to make for an opening. That pick was the beginning to our end, because without us being able to stop them from taking the high ground, our demise was absolutely imminent. As the red team gained ground on the objective, desperation started to set in. 4 minutes of full holding cannot end like this, not without a fight. My Winston boldly jumped onto the high ground to secure the space for the rest of our team. The Discord orb was putting pressure on the enemy Hanzo, but a Mercy pocket ensured that Fox would not gain an elimination that easily. Seeing my tank drop dangerously low, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Transcendence would light the way forward, saving my Winston while contesting the point. But the enemy Hanzo continued to be a thorn in my side. Fox was busy with the objective, so it was my job to rid ourselves of that nuisance. And while the two of us are definitely guilty of missing very easy shots, at last I was the one who came out victorious. But this was a lose-lose situation. The red team had already secured enough of an advantage to make it difficult for the rest of our team to follow through. Damage was raining down on our tanks as they desperately tried to juggle contesting the point, and versus contesting the high ground, and we ended up C9ing. Okay, so our glorious full hold may have ended eventually, but that doesn't mean that you should underestimate our competence. Much like how I was safe from a spawn camp, our team was going above and beyond to make sure that we save whoever we can in order to stabilize our position. Though I am hard-pressed to speak of competence when I highlight the fact that our Winston was still within the enemy lines at that point. Thankfully, the enemy Hanzo was no bit smarter than them because they failed to consider projectile travel times when they attempted to finally get rid of Fox. Ultimately, we valued our lives more than we valued the idea of recontesting, meaning that as much as we succeeded in disengaging, there was also no attempt at re-engaging, which made the second point capture rather easy for the enemy team. Oh, how the turns have tabled, going from the one who camps to being the one about to be camped. We had to find a way out of this mess, and thankfully our apprehensive behavior on the second point had secured us some vital ultimates. Our mystery heroes playing Hanzo fired his Dragon Strike into the enemy team to force them into our LOS. The attackers were finally under pressure thanks to a combination of anti-nades and Discord orbs, and in the commotion, our Rotox snuck their way around their backline to start wreaking havoc. The enemy DPS was easily taken care of, but the supports would prove a bit more feisty. Mini Ninja refused to go down without a fight, and if their DPS are not present to help them, then they would have to pick up the Glock themselves. You wouldn't have to tell me twice to eliminate a Mercy. I boldly ran at the enemies, well knowing it would mean my demise, just to make sure that a resurrection could not spearhead their comeback. We were back in business. There was no ground sacred enough to stop us from trespassing, and as soon as we got control of the payload, you know we had to march towards the enemy spawn. Of course, any such attempt would only be of temporary nature. We tried to weaken the opposition so that our combo plays could annihilate them for good. Diva, May, and I were ready to descend upon our enemies in a glorious hail of frozen vengeance, just for me to take a sleep dart to the noggin while May got absolutely destroyed. Much like Blizzard has not been known to produce anything worthwhile in recent memory, this Blizzard as well will prove to be completely useless. What was meant to annihilate the enemies now gave them a footing to strike back, meaning we were in hot waters. My Transcendence had to buy us the time to come up with a countermeasure to the countermeasure, but the red team's assault was already in full swing. I saw the enemy Hanzo in our backline, but figured my team would be able to handle them just fine. I had good reason to believe that because there was a 2v1 and my Ana landed a sleep dart, but somehow still ended up falling to the spam. Turning around in response to that was definitely the right move because my May too would get their cheeks clapped shortly after, and was for me to finally clean up the mess. That fight may have been won, but the red team was absolutely relentless in their attempts at ending this game. Our Rotox flanking shenanigans have also since heightened the enemy team's awareness, meaning even if they got an elim out of it, all the survivors were turned around to squash them like a bug. It is worth mentioning that I too was intending to flank, but said squashing occurred to me before I could even float my way into their backline. And it was only fitting that I was met with the hammer of justice mere seconds after returning from spawn. The good thing was that our Rotok had every intention of making up for the failed flank. After removing the enemy Reinhardt from our spawn, they rushed over to our remaining comrades on the cart to push the attackers back to whence they came. Our spawn advantage was coming in clutch, and keeping the enemy Mercy on the respawn train meant that even when things looked bad for us, we still managed to cheese our way into safety. Mini Ninja must have been particularly frustrated with that simple truth, so in a desperate act of defiance, they flew over to the payload to bring bloody vengeance to the one who discorded them back to spawn time and time again. But Mini Ninja made one crucial mistake. They underestimated my desire to BM. Of course I blew Transcendence to keep myself alive, but no second was wasted in which I didn't follow this Mercy around. Healing my teammates was a fortunate side effect of my bloodthirst, and as soon as I caught up to them, I would deny the wings and kick them down into the dirt. Victory was ours, and I had proven to myself that even after 3 months away from the game, establishing support there still feels as good as the very first day. Wait, this video was about flanking. I'll get to you about that. But if quick play is a bit too casual for you, then what about you check out my last competitive match? Granted, that was a few months ago, but it was without exaggeration one of the most intense matches of Overwatch I ever had the pleasure of participating in. If that catches your fancy, you can check out the code on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you want to see more, and definitely ring that bell icon to not miss out on my next upload. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and until next time, peace!